The sun was setting over Hiroshima, casting a warm golden light that flickered through the dusty windows of my small home. I sat surrounded by stacks of old photographs, each one a fragment of my past, a story etched in time. Staring at the faded images, I felt the weight of memories heavy on my heart. There was one photograph that always drew my attention, a picture of me and Hiroshi, my younger brother, grinning from ear to ear, the world at our feet, unaware of the tragedy that loomed just around the corner. "Why did you have to leave me?" I whispered to the empty room, my voice barely breaking the silence. I could almost hear his laughter echoing, a sound that had long been silenced. It felt like an eternity since I had last heard it, since the day we lost him in that horrific accident. I had picked up the camera that day, hoping to capture the beauty of our life together, but instead, I was left with an empty lens and a heart full of grief. I stood up, stretching my stiff limbs, and decided it was time to visit Hiroshi's grave. I grabbed a small bouquet of white chrysanthemums, his favorite flowers, and made my way to the cemetery. The streets of Hiroshima were familiar yet foreign to me now. The hustle and bustle of the city felt distant, as if I was walking through a dream. I could see families laughing together, children running with kites, and couples holding hands. Each joyful moment reminded me of my own solitude, a stark contrast to the vibrant life around me. As I approached the grave, I felt a lump in my throat. The headstone was marked by time, yet the inscription was clear: "Beloved brother, forever in our hearts." Kneeling down, I placed the flowers gently at the foot of the stone, and whispered a silent prayer. "I miss you, Hiroshi. I wish I could have saved you." Tears streamed down my cheeks as I recalled the last moments we shared together, the laughter, the dreams, and the promises of a future that would never come to be. Sitting there, surrounded by the stillness of the cemetery, I felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness wash over me. I glanced around and noticed a father playing with his son, their laughter ringing in sharp contrast to my silence. It felt like a knife twisting in my heart. In that moment, I realized how profoundly I had isolated myself from the world, how I had let my grief consume me. When I returned home, still heavy with sorrow, something caught my eye on the cluttered table, the card of an old friend, Hiroshi, the artist who had always seen the world through a different lens. I had not spoken to him in years. I hesitated, my fingers tracing the edges of the card as a wave of nostalgia hit me. Hiroshi had always believed in my potential, even when I had lost faith in myself. Would he still feel the same? I wondered if he could help me find my way back to the light, or if it was too late for me. Taking a deep breath, I reached for my phone, my heart racing. "What's the harm in trying?" I muttered to myself. I dialed the number, the familiar digits feeling foreign under my fingertips. After a few rings, a voice I hadn't heard in years answered. "Kenji? Is that you?" Hiroshi's voice was warm and inviting, pulling me back to a time when life felt full of possibilities. "It's me. Hiroshi. I found your card." My voice trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Ah. I've been hoping to hear from you. How have you been?" I hesitated, the weight of my grief feeling too heavy to share. "Not well, to be honest. I've been stuck." "Stuck? In what way?" His genuine curiosity made me feel seen, even in my vulnerability. "In everything, really. I've lost my way," I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I haven't taken a photograph in years. It's like the joy has been sucked out of me." "I understand. But you know, photography can be a powerful way to process pain. I'd love to catch up. Let's meet. How about tomorrow at that little cafe down the street?" A flicker of hope ignited within me. "Okay, I'd like that." "Great. Let's reminisce and maybe talk about how we can turn that pain into something beautiful." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Perhaps this was the first step towards rediscovering not only my passion for photography, but also a way to reconcile with my past. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling slightly as I dialed Hiroshi's number. It had been years since we last spoke, and the thought of reaching out was equally enticing and terrifying. As the phone rang, I could feel my heart race, a mixture of hope and fear coursing through me. Would he want to talk to me after all this time? Would he even remember the boy I used to be? Kenji. His voice was warm and familiar, immediately melting away years of uncertainty. It's been a long time. Hiroshi, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I was wondering if we could meet. There's a lot I'd like to say. Of course. How about that little cafe on the corner of Nishikigoi Street? The one we used to go to? His enthusiasm was contagious, and I felt a flicker of excitement. I'll be there at 3. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I hadn't been to that cafe in years, but the memories flooded back, the laughter, the warmth of friendship, and the sense of belonging that I had lost. When I arrived, the cafe was buzzing with chatter, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. I spotted Hiroshi at a corner table, his hair now streaked with silver but his smile unchanged. Kenji. Over here, he called, waving me over as if no time had pasado. I took a deep breath and approached the table. It's so good to see you, I said, trying to suppress the tremors of nostalgia and dread. Likewise. You look well, he replied, gesturing for me to sit. What's been going on with you? I hesitated, unsure of how to encapsulate years of silence and sorrow in a few sentences. I've been trying to find my way. It's been hard since I trailed off, the weight of Hiroshi's absence still heavy on my heart. Since the accident, he finished gently, nodding with understanding. I've thought about you often, you know. I always believed you had a gift, Kenji. His words were a balm to my wounded spirit. I used to love photography, but I lost interest. I've been stuck, really. Surrounded by old photographs, but feeling like a ghost. Hiroshi leaned in, his blue eyes intense and sincere. You can transform that pain into something beautiful, you know? Art has a way of healing. I wanted to believe him. But I don't know if I can do it again. What if I just fail? Failure is part of the process, he replied, leaning back slightly. You have to embrace it. Let your art speak for the pain. It can be a bridge to connect with others who share your struggles. As he spoke, I felt a spark ignite within me, a flicker of the passion I once had. You're so right, I said, my voice gaining strength. But I don't even know where to start. Let's start with your photographs, he suggested enthusiastically. I'm hosting an art exhibition next month. Why not bring some of your work? It could be a great way to reintroduce yourself to the world. I blinked, the suggestion both thrilling and daunting. An exhibition? I don't know if I'm ready for that. Trust me, Kenji. Take a leap of faith. Just think about it. His voice was encouraging, and I could see the passion radiating from him. As we continued to talk, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack. Hiroshi shared stories of his own creative process, how he learned to channel his emotions into his art. I found myself laughing at old memories, our mischievous adventures as kids, the way we sought beauty in the mundane. I remember that time we tried to capture the cherry blossoms, I chuckled. You were convinced you could make a masterpiece by just lying in the grass. Hey, I still stand by that. It was a great shot, he retorted, grinning widely. That laughter, that connection, reminded me of the joy I had almost forgotten. By the time our coffee cups were empty and the sun began to set, a sense of hope blossomed within me. Hiroshi, I said, my voice steady, I'll think about the exhibition. I really will. He smiled, the kind of smile that reassured me that I wasn't alone in this journey. That's all I ask. Just take it one step at a time. As I walked home, I felt lighter, as if I had shed a layer of sorrow. For the first time in a long while, I imagined picking up my camera again. The vibrant streets of Hiroshima beckoned me, and perhaps, just perhaps, I could find beauty in the pain once more. As I stepped out of my small, cluttered apartment in Hiroshima, the weight of my past clung to me like a heavy fog. My camera was slung over my shoulder, an old companion that had often captured moments of beauty but now served as a bittersweet reminder of my brother, Hiroshi. Today, I had decided to revisit the places we once roamed together, hoping to stir something deep within me, a flicker of inspiration that had long been extinguished. The streets of Hiroshima were alive with the sounds of laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped my heart. I wandered through familiar alleys, each corner sparking memories that both warmed and ached. I could almost hear Hiroshi's laughter echoing in the distance, urging me to lift my camera and capture the essence of this vibrant city. I took a deep breath, adjusting the focus of my lens on a blooming sakura tree, its delicate petals fluttering in the breeze. "This is for you, Hiroshi," I whispered, clicking the shutter. As I continued my exploration, I stumbled upon a park where a group of young artists were gathered. Their energy was infectious, a burst of colors splashed across the canvas of the world. They were painting murals, vibrant expressions of their struggles, hopes, and dreams. I stood a distance away, mesmerized by their passion. It was a sight I hadn't witnessed in years, and for a moment, I felt a glimmer of what I once loved about photography, the ability to convey stories through images. I watched as one of the young women, a girl with bright eyes and paint-splattered clothes, stepped back to admire her work. Her name, I would later learn, was Aiko. She caught my gaze and, with a warm smile, beckoned me closer. "Hey there. Are you an artist too?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity. I hesitated, the words choking in my throat. I'm a photographer," I finally managed to say, feeling the weight of my self-doubt. "But I haven't really taken any photos in a long time." "Why not? You should join us. We could use your perspective," Aiko encouraged, her enthusiasm infectious. "What kind of things do you usually photograph?" I paused, memories flooding back, snapshots of laughter, the warmth of family gatherings, the sorrow of loss. "I used to capture moments of life, beauty in the ordinary," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "Then come on. Let's see what you can do now." Aiko gestured to her friends, who were busy mixing paints and chatting excitedly. "We're sharing our stories through art. You should share yours too." Something inside me stirred at her words. Perhaps this was the push I needed. I took a step forward, drawn by the warmth of their camaraderie. "All right," I said, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "I'll give it a try." As I began to photograph the young artists, I realized I was not just capturing their work, I was documenting their stories, their struggles, and their resilience. Aiko painted with fervor, her brush strokes bold and free, and I found myself captivated by her spirit. "Why do you paint?" I asked her during a break. She looked up, eyes sparkling with passion. "Because it's my way of processing everything. Life is hard, Kenji. I lost my brother a few years ago in an accident. Painting helps me heal," she confessed, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. My heart ached in understanding. "I lost my brother too. Many years ago," I shared, feeling an unexpected bond form between us. "It's been difficult to move on." Aiko smiled softly, a shared understanding passing between us. "Then let's heal together," she said. "Let's turn our pain into something beautiful." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could find my place among these young artists. Perhaps through their stories and my photographs, I could begin to weave my own narrative, a narrative of healing and connection. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the park, I realized I was ready to embrace this new chapter, to step out of the shadows of my past and into the light of possibility. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across Hiroshima, I felt a surge of energy that I hadn't experienced in years. The vibrant city, filled with life and color, called to me like an old friend. I grabbed my camera, the weight of it comforting in my hands, and made my way to the park where I had first encountered the group of young street artists. Each step was a mix of excitement and trepidation, the familiar click of the shutter echoing in my mind as I thought about what I might capture today. Upon arriving, I found them already in the midst of their creations. Aiko was there, her paintbrush dancing across the canvas, her focus intense. The bright colors she used seemed to lift her spirit, and I felt drawn to her energy. I raised my camera and began snapping photos, capturing not just the art but the passion behind it. Each click felt like a step towards healing, a way to reconnect with my own passion for photography. "Hey, Kenji!" Aiko called out, noticing me. "Come join us. We're just getting started with a new mural." I hesitated, feeling the weight of my insecurities. "I'm just here to take photos. I don't want to intrude." "Not at all. Your perspective could add so much to what we're doing. Plus, we could use some guidance." "You've been around a lot longer than us," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. That simple invitation ignited something within me. I approached the group, and as I began to share my thoughts on their work, I felt the barriers around my heart start to crumble. They listened intently, their eyes bright with curiosity. "What's your story, Kenji?" one of the artists asked, his voice tentative yet sincere. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of silence. "I lost my brother a long time ago. It changed everything for me. I used to see beauty in everything through my lens, but after his passing, I struggled to find that beauty again." Aiko nodded, her expression softening. "I get that. I lost my brother too, in an accident. It's like a part of you is missing, and nothing feels the same." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and for the first time in ages, I felt understood. "How did you cope?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I channel it all into my art. It's my way of keeping his memory alive," she replied, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. Inspired by her resilience, I began to photograph Aiko and her friends as they painted, capturing their expressions, their laughter, and the moments of vulnerability that emerged as they shared their stories. Each click of the camera felt like a release. I was finally telling a story again, not just of my pain, but of their hopes and dreams. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Aiko turned to me with a bright smile. "You should show these photos at our next street art presentation. They'd resonate so much with everyone." My heart raced at the thought. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. Your story matters, Kenji. It's not just about the past, it's about how we grow from it," she said, her conviction wrapping around me like a warm blanket. After some hesitation, I nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll show my photos." Aiko's face lit up with excitement. "Yes. This will be amazing. You're going to inspire so many people." As I continued to photograph the artists, laughter and camaraderie filled the air. I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for years. The pain of my past began to feel lighter, as if shared burdens could somehow ease the weight on my soul. Later, as the sun set and the park began to empty, I sat with Aiko and the others, discussing not just art but life, dreams, and the challenges we all faced. With every word exchanged, I felt a connection forming, a bond built on shared experiences and the understanding that we were all navigating our own journeys of healing. Thank you for today, Kenji, Aiko said softly, her eyes shining. You've reminded me why I create. It's about more than just the art, it's about connection. I smiled, feeling a warmth blossom in my chest. And you've reminded me that it's never too late to rediscover my passion. I've been so lost for so long. As we parted ways that evening, I left with a renewed sense of purpose. My heart felt lighter, filled with the promise of healing and connection. I realized that, perhaps, it was time to embrace vulnerability and allow my past to guide my art, not define it. I stood in front of the small crowd gathered in the dimly lit room, my heart pounding in my chest. The walls were adorned with my photographs, each one a glimpse into my soul, a fragment of my journey through pain and healing. As I glanced around, I spotted my mother in the back, her expression unreadable, the weight of her disapproval palpable even from a distance. It was as if she were a shadow, looming over my moment of vulnerability. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice trembling slightly. These photographs are more than just images, they are a collection of memories, a testament to love, loss, and the beauty that can emerge from our darkest moments. I could feel the eyes of the audience on me, some familiar faces from the community of young artists I had come to admire, and others, older folks who had lived through their own stories of grief. As I spoke, I noticed the subtle shifts in the crowd. A young woman in the front row wiped a tear from her eye, and an older man nodded, his gaze distant as if he were lost in his own memories. It struck me then, my work resonated with them, just as it had begun to resonate with me. I was no longer just a lonely photographer haunted by my past, I was part of something larger, a shared experience of human emotion. After the presentation, as the crowd began to disperse, I felt the familiar knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I knew I had to confront my mother. She had been silent throughout my speech, and her presence felt like a heavy anchor weighing me down. I approached her, my heart racing. Mom, can we talk? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly. What's there to talk about, Kenji? You've made your choice. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. This isn't just about me. It's about Hiroshi. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd be proud. Proud? She snapped, her voice rising. You think this is something to be proud of? Parading your pain in front of strangers? I flinched at her words, feeling the sting of her disapproval. It's not just pain. It's art. It's how I cope with losing him. I thought you would see that. My mother crossed her arms, her expression hardening. You think your photographs can bring him back? You think this will fill the void he left? I felt anger bubbling up inside me, but I fought to keep it at bay. No, Mom, I don't think that. But this is my way of honoring him. Through my art, I can keep his memory alive. I can share our story, our pain, and maybe help others who are suffering too. She shook her head, the disappointment clear in her eyes. You don't understand. You're not the only one who lost him, Kenji. I lost my son too. Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken grief. I could feel the walls closing in around us, suffocating in their tension. Then why can't we talk about it? Why can't we share our pain together? I pleaded, my voice cracking. Because I don't want to relive it, she shouted, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't want to face it. I thought you were moving on, but all you're doing is digging up the past. I took a step back, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting, Mom. It means finding a way to carry the love we had for him with us. For a moment, we stood there, two people on opposite sides of a chasm, each consumed by our own grief. I could see the pain etched on her face, the years of sorrow and regret that had built up like a fortress around her heart. Kenji, she said softly, her voice trembling now, I don't know how to deal with this. I've never understood your passion for photography. I thought it was just a phase. It's not a phase, Mom, I replied gently. It's who I am. And I want you to be a part of it. I want you to understand. As the crowd thinned out, I realized that this was only the beginning of our conversation, a step toward healing the rift that had grown between us. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find a way to bridge that gap together. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my collar for what felt like the 100th time. The reflection staring back at me showed a man who was old, weary, and burdened by memories that clung to me like shadows. The small exhibition I was about to attend felt like a pivotal moment. Would it be the start of something new, or just another reminder of what I had lost? My heart raced with both excitement and dread. As I made my way to the venue, I replayed the conversation I had with my mother earlier that day. She had come over, her expression tight and unyielding, as she glanced around my cluttered living room filled with photographs of happier times. "Kenji," she had said, her voice shaky, "are you sure you want to do this? It's too painful." "Mom, it's time," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel the tremor in my hands. "It's not just about Hiroshi, it's about me finding a way to express my grief. I need to honor him, not hide from it." Her eyes softened for a moment, but then the barrier came crashing down again. "You think displaying those photographs will bring him back? You're only opening old wounds. What if it hurts you more?" "It's already hurting me," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Every day I live with this pain. I want to share it, to connect with others who've lost something. This is my way of healing." She crossed her arms and looked away, her silence louder than any words. I could see that the years of unspoken grief had created a chasm between us. I longed for her understanding, but she was still trapped in her sorrow, unwilling to step into the light of healing. Now, standing in front of the exhibition space, I felt the weight of that conversation heavily on my shoulders. The gallery was filled with vibrant colors and lively chatter, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, clutching a small stack of Hiroshi's letters in my pocket for courage. As I set up my photographs, I caught sight of Aiko across the room, her bright smile lighting up her face as she spoke to a group of friends. She had been a source of inspiration for me. Her energy and passion reminded me of a time when I, too, felt alive and connected to my art. I approached her, my heart beating faster. "Kenji," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "I'm so glad you're here. How are you feeling?" "Honestly, a bit nervous," I admitted, glancing at the photographs displayed on the wall. "It feels like I'm exposing my soul." Aiko nodded, a sympathetic expression on her face. "That's what art is, right? A piece of our hearts laid bare. You're brave for doing this." "Brave or foolish," I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. "I just hope my mother shows up. I want her to see this." "She will," Aiko reassured me. "You're honoring your brother's memory. That's powerful." The warmth of her words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. Just then, the exhibition's host welcomed everyone, and I felt my stomach twist in knots. As I stood in front of the crowd, I caught a glimpse of my mother entering the gallery. Her expression was unreadable, but she had come. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "Today, I'm sharing not just my photographs but the story of my brother, Hiroshi. He was my confidant, my inspiration, and my closest friend. Losing him was like losing a part of myself." As I spoke, I could feel my mother's eyes on me, searching for understanding. I continued, "These photographs represent my journey through grief. Each image captures not just loss, but the beauty that can emerge from that pain. I hope they resonate with anyone who has faced similar heartache." I paused, scanning the audience. I could see tears glistening in some attendees' eyes, and I felt a sense of solidarity with them. My heart swelled with courage as I revealed one particular photograph, a serene landscape that I had taken during a moment of reflection after Hiroshi's passing. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found. It's about finding beauty in vulnerability, I concluded, my voice strong. This isn't just my story, it's ours. Thank you for allowing me to share it with you. As the applause echoed around me, I felt a rush of relief and gratitude. I turned to look at my mother, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something different in her eyes, recognition, perhaps. Maybe we were beginning to meet in the middle, amidst the pain we both carried. It was a small step, but it was a step forward, and for that, I was grateful. The air was thick with the scent of paint and possibility as I stood in the dimly lit gallery, surrounded by the vibrant works of the young artists. Each piece seemed to pulsate with life, their colors screaming stories of resilience and dreams. I felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through me, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. It was as if the walls were enveloping me, inviting me to be a part of this thriving community that I had once thought I'd lost forever. Kenji. Aiko's voice cut through the murmur of conversations, and I turned to see her approach, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Did you see the mural we painted outside? It's massive. You've got to check it out. Not yet, but I'll definitely take a look, I replied, feeling a smile tug at the corners of my mouth. Aiko's enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself swept up in her energy. You've really brought this place to life. Thanks. It's all about expressing what we feel, right? She grinned, then added a bit more seriously, your photographs are incredible, Kenji. They resonate with so many of us. You have a gift. Maybe, I said, humbled by her words. But the real gift is being here, surrounded by all of you. Your passion, it's inspiring. I gestured around the gallery, the young artists chatting and laughing, their faces alight with hope. I never thought I could feel this way again. Aiko's expression softened. It's okay to feel lost sometimes. I mean, I struggled for so long after losing my brother. But finding art helped me heal. Your journey is just beginning, Kenji. Thank you for that, I said quietly, my heart swelling with gratitude. I thought back to the pain I had carried for so long, the weight of my brother's death pressing down on me. I've been afraid to truly embrace my art, afraid of reopening old wounds. She reached out, placing a hand on my arm. We're all in this together. You don't have to carry that burden alone. Her voice was steady and reassuring, a balm to my troubled soul. As we moved through the gallery, I felt a growing sense of belonging. The young artists began to share their stories with me, their struggles and triumphs woven into their creations. Each narrative was a thread, stitching us together in a tapestry of shared experiences. I lost my brother in a car accident too, Aiko confessed, her voice barely above a whisper as we stood before her mural. It depicted a phoenix rising from ashes, vibrant and alive. I poured all my pain into this. It helped me remember him, but also to let go. I didn't know, I said softly, my heart aching for her. I can't imagine the pain you felt. It's tough, she admitted, looking down for a moment before meeting my gaze again. But it's also a reminder that we can transform our grief into something beautiful. Like your photographs, Kenji. They tell stories of loss, but also of hope. I've never thought of it that way, I replied, my mind racing with the possibilities. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can create something that honors both our stories. Exactly. Aiko's enthusiasm returned, her eyes lighting up. You should present a series that tells our stories, Kenji. We could even collaborate on something together. Just then, a group of young artists approached us, their chatter filling the air. Kenji. Aiko. "You've got to see this," one of them exclaimed, pulling us toward a cluster of vibrant canvases. As we walked over, I felt a shift within me. I was no longer the solitary photographer burdened by grief. I was part of a collective, a community that thrived on shared pain and healing. The conversations flowed easily, laughter mingling with stories of heartache, and for the first time in ages, I felt a sense of purpose. Kenji, one of the artists, a girl with bright blue hair, called out, "We're planning a street art event next week. You should come and bring your camera. Capture the energy, the spirit of it all." "I would love to," I replied, feeling a surge of excitement. I've always wanted to document the art scene here. It's alive with stories waiting to be told. That's the spirit. Aiko chimed in, and I could see the hope shining in her eyes. "Let's make it a celebration of our journeys together." As I stood there, surrounded by laughter and creativity, I realized that my journey was no longer a solitary one. I was woven into the fabric of this community, and together, we would create something beautiful, something that would honor not just our pain but our shared resilience. As I sat in my small, cluttered studio, surrounded by remnants of my past, old photographs, faded memories, I felt a surge of inspiration unlike anything I had experienced in years. It was as if the essence of my brother Hiroshi whispered through the air, urging me to bring his spirit to life through my art. The project I had envisioned, a photographic series dedicated to the stories of loss and resilience, began to take shape in my mind. Each image would not only reflect my journey but also honor the memories of those who had faced similar heartaches. I picked up my camera, the familiar weight in my hands reminding me of countless days spent capturing moments that told stories far deeper than words could express. "Today is the day," I murmured to myself, feeling a wave of determination wash over me. I wanted to encapsulate the beauty of healing, the raw vulnerability that comes with opening one's heart to both pain and joy. As I prepared to venture out, I thought of Aiko and the other young artists I had met. Their energy and passion had ignited a fire within me, and I knew they would understand my vision. I pulled out my phone, hesitating for a moment before sending a message to Aiko. "Would you like to collaborate on something special? I'm working on a project about healing and resilience, and I'd love to include your story." The response came almost instantly, "Absolutely. I'd be honored to help. Let's meet up." It was a beautiful day in Hiroshima, and the sun cast a warm glow over the city. As I walked to the park where we had first met, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. What if my mother found out about my plans for the exhibition? She had been struggling with her grief ever since Hiroshi's death, and I feared that bringing his memory into the light again would reopen old wounds. Still, I couldn't let that deter me. This was about healing, not just for me, but for everyone who had suffered loss. When I arrived at the park, I spotted Aiko sitting on a bench, her sketchbook resting on her lap. She looked up and smiled, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Kenji, I'm so glad to see you. What do you have in mind for the project?" I sat beside her, feeling the comforting presence of her youthful spirit. "I want to create a series of photographs that tell the stories of loss and resilience, not just mine, but everyone's. I think it's important to show that while pain is a part of life, so is the beauty that can come from it. I'd love to include your journey as well." Aiko's expression shifted to one of deep thought. "That sounds incredible. I've lost my brother too, you know. I think it would be cathartic to share our stories together." Her words resonated with me. Yes, exactly. It's about finding strength in vulnerability. We can show people that it's okay to feel pain and that healing is a journey we all share. As we brainstormed ideas, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Aiko was brimming with creativity, suggesting locations and themes that I hadn't even considered. "What if we photographed some of the places that remind us of our brothers?" she proposed, her voice animated. "It could be really powerful." I love that idea, I exclaimed, my heart racing. We could include locations that represent moments of joy and sorrow in our lives. It's a way to confront the past. The more we talked, the more I felt the weight of my mother's expectations lift. I could see a path forward, not just for the project but for my own healing. Yet, an underlying anxiety gnawed at me. What would my mother think? Would she understand that this was my way of honoring Hiroshi? As if sensing my inner turmoil, Aiko asked, "Are you okay, Kenji? You seem a bit distant." I sighed, leaning back against the bench. I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate my mother's feelings about all of this. She's still in so much pain, and I worry that bringing Hiroshi's memory into the light again will hurt her. Aiko nodded, her expression sympathetic. It's tough. But sometimes, the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful breakthroughs. Maybe she needs to see you embracing your art, to understand that it's a part of who you are. Her words struck a chord within me. Perhaps she was right. Maybe my mother needed to witness my journey, to see that art could be a form of healing rather than a reminder of loss. With that thought swirling in my mind, I felt a flicker of hope. It was time to embrace my vulnerability and share my heart with both Aiko and my mother. Let's do this, I said, determination settling in my chest. Let's create something beautiful together. As days slipped by, I found myself increasingly consumed by the idea of the exhibition dedicated to Hiroshi. My heart raced with anticipation, but the weight of my mother's disapproval loomed over me like a dark cloud. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing a boundary, one that had been drawn by years of unspoken grief. I remember the moment I made my decision. It was a chilly evening, and I sat at my dining table, surrounded by prints of my photographs. Each one captured not just a moment in time but a piece of my soul, a fragment of my healing process. I picked up a photograph of Hiroshi, one I had taken long ago on a sunlit day in the park. His laughter echoed in my mind as I traced the outline of his face with my fingers. I have to do this, I whispered to the empty room. I owe it to you, brother. But just as I was feeling resolute, my phone buzzed. It was Aiko, the young artist who had become a source of inspiration for me. Kenji. Are you ready for the exhibition? Her enthusiasm was infectious, pulling me from my spiral of doubt. I'm working on it, I replied, glancing at the prints scattered around me. But I'm worried about my mother. She's not taking it well. Your art is powerful, Kenji. It's a way to heal, not just for you but for everyone who sees it. Don't let her fears hold you back. Aiko's voice was steady, and I could almost see her nodding, urging me to forge ahead. I know, but she's still hurting. I don't want to reopen old wounds, I confessed, my voice heavy with uncertainty. Sometimes, wounds need to be opened to let the healing begin, she said softly. We'll be there for you, no matter what. Her words lingered in the air as I hung up. I felt a flicker of hope, igniting a fire that had been dormant for too long. I made a list of what I needed for the exhibition and grabbed my camera, ready to capture moments that would tell a story of love and loss, pain and healing. In the days that followed, Aiko and the other young artists rallied around me, offering their support and creativity. We transformed my small studio into a vibrant space filled with colors and textures, a warm and inviting atmosphere that felt like a sanctuary. Let's hang this one here, Aiko suggested, holding up a bright painting that depicted a phoenix rising from ashes. It symbolizes rebirth. It fits perfectly with your theme. Absolutely, I agreed, feeling the energy of our collaboration infuse me with confidence. And this one, too. It's about hope. As we worked late into the nights, laughter and stories flowed freely. I shared tales of Hiroshi, recounting how he used to dream of becoming an artist himself. He always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Then let's honor that belief, one of the other artists chimed in. Let's make this exhibition reflect that love. The day of the exhibition arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and dread. The venue was buzzing with energy, filled with people eager to see the art. As I set up my photographs, I caught sight of my mother across the room. Her expression was inscrutable, and my heart sank. Would she understand what this meant to me? Kenji. Aiko's voice broke through my thoughts. You're going to be amazing. Just be yourself. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. Thanks, Aiko. It's just, she doesn't see the value in what I'm doing. She will, Aiko said, squeezing my shoulder. Just show her your heart. As guests began to arrive, I felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in my stomach. The room filled with chatter and laughter, but all I could focus on was my mother's distant gaze. I approached her, the weight of unsaid words hanging heavily between us. Mom, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. I really want you to see what I've created. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps, shimmered there. I don't know if this is the right way to remember him, she replied, her tone cautious. Art is how I remember him, I said, my voice firming. It's how I heal. I want to share that with you. She looked away, and I was afraid I had lost her again. But then, Aiko called me to introduce my work. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the makeshift stage, my heart pounding. I glanced back at my mother, who still stood with her arms crossed. This is for you, Hiroshi, I thought. And for everyone who has loved and lost. With each word I spoke, I felt the walls between my mother and me begin to tremble ever so slightly. I was ready to honor not just my brother's memory, but the unhealed wounds that bound us together, hoping that someday, we could mend them. As the exhibition began, a hush fell over the crowd, an electric anticipation filling the air. I stood nervously near my photographs, each image a piece of my heart laid bare, a testament to not just my journey but also to Hiroshi's memory. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my glasses, trying to focus on the faces surrounding me, each one a stranger yet so familiar in their shared experiences of loss. As I began to speak, my voice wavered. Thank you all for coming tonight. This exhibition is not just about my work, it's about healing, remembrance, and the love we carry for those we've lost. I glanced at my mother, who stood stiffly at the back, her expression inscrutable. I swallowed hard, trying to gauge her reaction, but she seemed distant, locked away in her own world of grief. I continued, feeling the weight of their eyes on me. These photographs were taken in moments of reflection and pain. They are stories of resilience, of beauty found in the shadows. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But they are also a tribute to my brother, Hiroshi. He was my inspiration, my light. I want to honor him tonight. As I spoke, I noticed a few guests wiping away tears, and it fueled my determination to convey the depth of my love and loss. Hiroshi once told me, I shared, that art should reflect the truth of our existence, that it should give voice to our sorrows. A quiet murmur echoed through the room as I pointed to a photograph of Hiroshi and me, taken long ago. This was when we were just kids, carefree and full of dreams. I lost him too soon, and for many years, I lost myself in that pain. But as I continued to speak, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. My heart raced as I caught sight of my mother, her face softening. Perhaps she was finally beginning to understand. I took a deep breath, deciding to take a leap of faith. Mom, I called out, my voice breaking slightly, I know you've carried your own burdens, just as I have. But it's time we shared them. It's time we honored Hiroshi together. Just then, I revealed the special photograph I had saved for last, a candid shot of Hiroshi, laughing, a moment frozen in time that encapsulated his spirit. This is the brother I remember, the one who wanted nothing but for me to find my passion. As I unveiled the photograph, I looked toward my mother, desperate for her reaction. But instead of the acknowledgement I sought, I saw her face contort in pain. She clutched her chest, and I hurriedly stepped down from the small platform, moving towards her. "Mom, are you okay?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Kenji." Her voice cracked, the weight of years of silence spilling forth. I blamed myself for what happened. I should have protected him. I felt my heart shatter at her admission. "Mom, you can't carry that weight alone. It wasn't your fault." She shook her head vehemently. "But it was. I was supposed to keep you both safe. I failed." In that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized that we had both been trapped in our own versions of grief, each too afraid to confront the other. "You didn't fail. Hiroshi wouldn't want us to suffer like this. He would want us to live fully, to embrace our pain and transform it into something beautiful." Just then, amidst the emotional chaos, I felt a pull towards an old, dusty box in the corner of the room. I approached it, my heart racing. As I opened it, I found a letter, crumpled and yellowed with age. It was from Hiroshi, a letter I had not seen in years. "Mom, look!" I called, holding it up. "It's from Hiroshi." Her eyes widened, and she stepped closer. As I unfolded the letter, I read aloud, "Dear Kenji, if you're reading this, it means I'm not there with you. I want you to know how proud I am of you. Keep creating, keep dreaming. You have a gift that the world needs." My voice broke as I continued, "He believed in me, Mom. He wanted me to thrive." My mother's sobs filled the room as the truth of Hiroshi's words washed over us both. In that moment, we were no longer just mother and son mourning a loss. We were two souls finding solace in the memory of a beloved brother and son. As I stood there, holding the letter tightly, I glanced around the room. The faces of the crowd blurred, but their energy pulsed with shared understanding. I realized that this was just the beginning of our healing journey. We had faced the darkness, and in that confrontation, we found the light.